as always, we got some somber subject matter tonight, but as always, we begin with our dumbass report. And for tonight's edition, I don't have much of a preamble because, in my opinion, there's very little that I could possibly say to you about this clip.
I do want to say about this is a good clip, but I like how you call it the dumbass report because it's like the weather. It's just like dumbasses just exist in American politics, and you're just like, today it's dumbass
dude,
on the
Western forecast always calling for gale force dumbassery in this country in 2020. Yeah, this particular clip we've selected, I feel like there's very little I could possibly say about it that would adequately highlight the comical stupidity of it more than you guys just watching the clip. So I'm going to pull it up. This is a campaign ad, an honest-to-goodness, real-life campaign ad from the great state of Georgia.
Did you know Kelly Loeffler was ranked the most conservative senator in America?
Yep, she's more conservative than Attila the Hun.
Fight China. Got it. Attack big government.
Yeah. Eliminate the liberal scribes.
More conservative than Attila the Hun.
Uh-oh.
Kelly Loeffler, 100% Trump voting record.
I'm Kelly Loeffler. I approve this message.
She approves that
Kelly
message,
Loeffler
Mark. I mean, of course she does, but where do you even begin with that? Like
the fake Attila the Hun. By the way, she doesn't know anything about Attila the Hun.
Of course not.
But the fake Attila the Hun is threatening to murder liberal journalists, like have them executed, and she is saying she's
further right than that. I know. There's just so much to unpack here. Like, first of all, I feel like this is such a good example of this whole dynamic with political comedy in America right now, meaning, like, I feel like there's this perception people have thinking that if you traffic in political comedy in the era of Donald Trump, then you're playing with a corked bat, that it's like it's easier than ever to be funny because of how mockable they are. But I think this is an example of actually sometimes it's more difficult because, like, how do you parody that which is a parody of itself? Like I said up top, how do you even make this dumber than they made it with a completely straight face?
I can't even figure out what the goal of this ad is here because I was trying to look into her race. Like, she's leading by 3, but second place is another Republican, which is assuming why she's running ads about how conservative she is. But there's 2 other Democrats who add up to beating her by a mile. And Georgia's kind of a swing state now. Like, Trump's within the margin of error. So I don't know why you would brag about being cruel in a campaign.
Right. Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like you said, it's like they're, first of all, again, they seem to know little to nothing about Attila the Hun, but also even in their own, like, portrayal of Attila the Hun, he's this, like, it's very racist, like, you know what I mean? He, like, speaks in grunts. He's this foreign barbarian who's like, oh, kill them all. Yes, sir. Kill them all. And it sounds like you would think they are, like, comparing liberals to that or something if you just saw that part of it in a vacuum. But like you said, that's not what she's saying. She's saying, I'm this guy cranked up to 10. Please vote for me. Just grunting murder orders at her subordinates. And that's her selling point. It's fucking ridiculous, man.
Yeah, also, like, Tomasz doesn't know shit about Attila. Like Attila's remembered as a feared conqueror because he invaded Europe and defeated Western. Like he's literally, like, from her point of view, would be the leader of an invading horde of foreigners coming to sack Western culture, right?
Right.
So it's like, dude, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about here, and he falls in a fascinating gap of, like, people always say history is written by the victors, but it's not necessarily true because, like, people remember Vikings as being super cruel just because they couldn't write down all their wins, whereas the people that got their ass kicked by the Vikings got to write down the history of how mean the Vikings were. So it's like Attila just falls into that trap. But anyway, she sucks. She's stupid. I don't know.
Yeah, so we've got a couple other little fun things for you guys. I mean, as always, the fun things are also infuriating, but still, before we get into some of the sadder stuff, there's a Donald Trump had another one of his super spreader rallies, this one in Ohio, and among many other things, he got to talking about airplanes, and he likes airplanes, and airplanes are cool.
Airplanes go vroom and zoom.
They do go vroom and zoom. So here's the first clip we're going to show you.
We had a depleted, we had old planes, we had old everything. It was a depleted military, and now it's a beautiful, brand new. We have F-35s that you can't see. Stealth, they're stealth. Yeah.
All right, hang on. Hang on. One more. Let's see the next one here, because it's also on the subject of aeroplanes and how cool they are. Trump's a big fan. All right.
Never seen before. You don't see them either. They go through here. They're saying, "What happened? What was that? It's gone. It's here. There it is. I hear a noise over there. Where is it? It's gone. It's over there." But I call it super duper. It's super duper is easier for people to understand than hydrosonic. But you know.
Obviously,
Super duper invisible airplanes, Mark. You can't fuck with us.
we're on year 5 of him thinking stealth planes are actually invisible, like Wonder Woman.
Yeah, he literally still believes that stealth airplanes are invisible to the eye.
I do hate the gotcha stuff, and politicians obviously misspeak, and people like they're idiots. Like when Obama said the 57 states or whatever, he's talking about 57 primaries. But I would be like, okay, well, he means when he says invisible, he means to radar, which is sort of true. But then he goes, you go by, and you can't even see them. It's like, no, you can see them. You can see them. This isn't a misspeak. It's not a gaffe.
Yeah, and then it'd be like, they call him hydrosonic. I call him super duper. That's a better word. The best words. He's got all the best words, best adjectives. He knows what to say to fire the people up. We got the super duper murder planes, everybody, right here in America.
What I do love about the guy is he's totally disproved the idea of a meritocracy, and just the rest of us learn vocabularies.
Yeah, it's like we've talked about it before on here, but you just reminded me of this whole argument, the whole thing about should or should not Biden debate him, and there's this idea that persists out there that Biden can't hang with Trump in a debate, and I'm not even talking yet. Biden has a lot of gaffes. He puts his foot in his mouth a lot, but every time I hear somebody saying this, I just feel like, hey, have you seen different clips of Donald Trump talking than I have seen? Friday on Bill Maher, when I was on there, we ain't got to get into all that, but Michael Cohen was on there, and he was talking about Donald Trump is a master deflector. He was saying he's a master deflector. If you say he's stupid, he's going to be like, no, you're stupid. He's a master deflector. It's like, what? That's I'm rubber and you are glue shit? That's fucking elementary school shit that he's getting praised for. And everybody's like, Biden can't hang with that in a debate. And I've just never understood it. Now, disclaimer before you respond, I do know that the reality is no matter what transpires in a debate between Biden and Trump's people are going to act like he mopped the floor with him, no matter what actually happens. But I just don't believe that the reality of it could possibly play out any other way. I can't think of any high-level politician that I wouldn't put up against Donald Trump in a war of words. Super-duper jet planes.
I still think
the fuck are we talking about?
I still think you're what's it called, the just world fallacy. I still think you think because Biden gets up there and his answers will make sense and Trump's won't, but it won't be a more effective debate performance. And I just don't know if that's. I think saying I'm not stupid, you're stupid actually works on a lot of people. And I don't know. It's just it doesn't appeal to me, but a lot of people were there cheering for it. He said super duper, and a bunch of people went, yeah. I don't know. Right.
You're objectively correct about that. There's no doubt. But it's again, I've had the conversation before on here. I just don't still, even acknowledging that, is Biden going to lose people that are on the fence? And again, I don't even understand how fence voters exist right now, but I guess they do. Biden's going to lose people that are on the fence by debating him because of the shit we're talking about. I know that Trump's people are going to be like, yeah, he is stupid. You got him on the libs, or whatever. But I don't know. The idea of backing down from that motherfucker in a verbal debate is just, to me, that's a worse look than going through what you're talking about. Because, that's going to happen either way. But
fuck him. There's like political coverage in this country is suffers under a lot of bullshit. And part of it is if I was going to back out of the debate, I would do it because it doesn't matter. It just there's not a single person, it's not going to change anyone's minds. We talked about the other day, something 70% of people, Hillary won all 3 debates and she didn't get enough votes to win.
Right.
So a bunch of people voted that Hillary was better at the debates and then voted for Donald Trump. These are the same people. So it's this is debate camp for politics nerds. It's like doing Model UN. It's the candidates take a day off to go do Model UN, right? And so political reporters have something to do and something to write about and something to talk about. Narratives are shifting. There's this historian wrote this piece about some reporter called him to ask him about the debates. And this guy was like, well, I will talk to you about this election, but I'll talk to you in the guise of of this being an aspiring authoritarian whose election's this election's bad news in a lot of ways. I'm not going to talk to you about epic debate changes throughout history and what Trump could do in the debate to turn the narrative, because that's bullshit. It's pointless. And the reporter's like, okay, I don't need you as a source then. So it's just people, it's so far removed from anything that matters. I would skip it because it's just you guys are going to write about this like it's a horse show. Then I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah, no, I know. And again, you're right about everything you just said, but I just still go back to I can't imagine backing out of a debate with the super duper jet plane guy, but I hear you. You're right about what you're saying, and it's a goddamn shame. So speaking of a goddamn shame, now we move on to the aforementioned more somber topics. As everybody is aware, between the last edition of the Skews and this one here tonight, a moment that American liberals had lived in fear of for quite a while finally came to pass last Friday when Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away at the age of 87. And there's a million different reasons why that's horrible, but one of them in the macro American political sense is that it opens up another Supreme Court position for the Republicans to fill. And no one on either side is surprised by this. But despite the fact that in 2016, when Scalia died in February, 9 months before the election, the Republicans made a big show of refusing to confirm any new Supreme Court justice, specifically because of the fact that it was an election year, and according to them, the American people had a right to have a say in the Supreme Court appointee. That big dog and pony show from back then, they are not even pretending to give a shit about what they said at that time, and are instead making no bones about the fact that they are going to fast track as much as humanly possible a Trump appointee to RBG's spot. And Mark, this is just horrific any way you slice it, isn't it? This is awful.
Yeah. But go back to the political theater stuff. That rule Mitch McConnell made up and said that Joe Biden made up or whatever. Don't confirm justices when the Senate and presidency are split in election years. Like that, they didn't mean that when they said it. And I hate even to call it hypocrisy, because no one believed them then. There were a bunch of political reporters that pretended to believe them, because the number one job if you're a Washington reporter is you have to take everyone, what the words come out of their mouth, or have to be taken at extreme face value, and you cannot look any deeper than that, even if it's what they're saying is horseshit. So they should have just been up front and been like, we don't have to confirm an Obama judge, so we're not gonna, because we want, if we win, to be able to install someone who will overturn Roe and make it so the corporations can use your children for food if they want. They could have just been honest about it. It might have cost them a point or two in the election, maybe, if they were honest. But I wish, like, this, but the same token, like, to hear Democratic politicians try to use this as a debating point is really frustrating because it's like, this is a made up rule. You're trying to enforce a rule that you didn't believe they said then. And now you're trying, just say, we don't want another conservative Supreme Court justice because they might eliminate gay marriage, outlaw abortion, and make this climate change progress impossible. Just make the actual case instead of retreating to a political theater. I don't like this. It's the same. We always complain about on here. Democratic politicians will appeal to the refs, like just appeal to the refs. Like, what, somebody help us out here. It's like this. There are no rules, man. Use the power you have to grab. Use the power you have to work for your constituents. Because they
make the rules. Like the only rules are the ones that they make when they have the ability to do so. Like, you know, trying to sort of hold it in their face. Like, look, remember what you said back then? You said that was the rule. Well, what about now? Like, of course they don't give a fuck about that. Like, they didn't give a fuck about it then. They don't give a fuck about it now. Like, they're gonna do. If there's anything they have illustrated during the entirety of Trump's reign as president so far, it's that the rules are what they make them to be. Like, they don't care. There's no such thing as consistency or precedence or anything like that. All that matters is what they want to do in any given moment. You know, like the whole time when Trump was getting impeached and all that, like, I mean, he needed to get impeached, and I'm glad he did. And I'm sure every other liberal felt the same way, but I never for 1 second thought it was going to amount to anything because, of course, they were just going to do what they do. You know, they were never going to fire their guy no matter what the actual, you know, facts said or what the case said or what the evidence said or anything like that. And they do, like you said, they participate in this political theater and they try to find ways to be diplomatic about their bullshit. But at the end of the day, like, they do whatever the fuck they want to do because they're in charge. And that's just the way that it is, which is why I think, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like the only answer to this scenario is we have to win big in November. Everybody has to show up. We have to win big. And I know the answer to everything is always just vote, but it literally is vote, and we have to win big. And if and when we do win big, we got to play by that same rule that they have. We're in charge now. Well, and we're going to do whatever the fuck we want. Expand the court, make term limits, whatever. Do whatever the fuck you want. That's what they've been doing for the past however many years. Like, it has to be approached this way. And if we do win and get in there and then take the high road again and stand on, like, principle or whatever the fuck it is, then yeah.
I'll say this: like, everyone should vote. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from voting here, but what discourages people from voting is that Democrats actually do have power here. They have leverage. If the roles were reversed, what Republicans would have been doing for the last few years is like, Democrats in the Senate have given unanimous consent to everything. There's a bunch of procedural bullshit the Senate has to do according to their own rules, and Democrats have done everything they can to make it faster out of politeness. They could have slowed down the judge approval process, where it wouldn't be 200 judges. They could remove unanimous consent right now, and there probably wouldn't be enough time to install a Supreme Court justice by January 20th. The House Democrats, constitutionally, the Senate has to take up impeachment. They can impeach every cabinet secretary they have cause to, which is most of them at this point, and the president, again, for multiple things, and that would bog them down and just delay until they could not install a Supreme Court justice. And they absolutely would do that because those aren't, how to put this, those things aren't against the rules. They're in the rules. Right. That's not cheating. That's trying. So
yeah, right.
It's like, this is like a game of basketball where one team considers it uncouth to try to block the other one's shot. Right.
Like, it's not sportsmanlike or something.
Yes.
You know, and it's like there's no sportsmanship with these motherfuckers. Like, there is no high road. It doesn't exist. Like, if you cannot beat them unless you agree to fucking play dirty and play the game the way they play it. Like, we will keep losing as long as you keep trying to make it into something that it's just not anymore. And I don't care how cynical of a viewpoint that is. That's just the fucking reality of it.
It's not even. It's not about what they like. Like, look at from their perspective. If I honestly believe that abortion was child murder, and that Joe Biden was going to herd, conservative professors into camps or whatever, I would absolutely do everything I could to make sure, even in a lame dunk session, to install a Supreme Court justice who would rein in an out-of-control liberament. Now, that's not true in my way of thinking, but if you believe that, you should be fighting tooth and nail, right? Whereas on the other hand, if you really believe that a conservative Supreme Court is going to overturn Roe, is going to outlaw gay marriage, is going to lock in, the voting rights bullshit that's been eliminated in the last 2 decades, it's going to, allow a new Jim Crow to rise. It's going to lock in gerrymandering to where it won't matter. Like, if they get a 6-3 advantage of crazy conservatives, or the swing vote goes from John Roberts to Neil Gorsuch, and they have the conservative Supreme Court, it won't matter if Congress can pass a Green New Deal unanimously and it's signed by the president. The court is going to wipe off the map. Literally, this is planet destroying shit. If you really believe that's the case, like I do, and Democrats in Congress claim to believe, you should be doing everything you can to stop it from happening. So it begs the question, do they not believe what they're saying? Or do they not actually understand reality? Because while they were fundraising off RBG's death Friday night, they raised $20 million. They announced they weren't going to do anything to stop the hearings. So why are we giving them money? Why are we voting for it? I vote for them because there's no other choice at this point. But our senator Dianne Feinstein already announced that she will vote. That she won't vote to end the filibuster. So now we need a 60-vote supermajority to extend unemployment benefits starting in January. So Democrats retake the Senate and nothing's going to happen. That's a hell of a voter turnout initiative. Vote for us. We'll have 53-seat majority and we won't do shit with it. Because Dianne Feinstein doesn't want to end an arbitrary rule that was invented in 1950 to stop the civil rights movement. So, yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, man. It's very hopeless and dark. But like I said, I just still like, I don't know. It's if they take all 3 factions, right, or all 3, they take the White House and all of Congress. If that does happen. And they have 4 years in charge, and they continue this mealy-mouthed bullshit, then obviously, we're fucked forever. But our best option right now is to try to ensure that happens, and then try to hold their feet to the fire. Yeah. I don't know what else to do, man. Like, I mean,
maybe if people start chaining themselves to Congress's doors, then Chuck Schumer will get the hint and start doing stuff. But even the way they talk about it, stuff like we talk about playing within the rules and consider cheating. Like, people talk about expanding the court slightly or admitting Puerto Rico and DC as states as cheating when it's not cheating. It's expanding your power within the rules, which is how democracy is supposed to work. It's also,
even the Constitution. On the last episode, we made fun of Marsha Blackburn, the asshole senator from Tennessee, for saying that it's not possible to alter the Constitution. And we're like, of course it is. They're called amendments. We've done plenty of them. So, like, even the most fundamental level, you're talking about the Constitution. If you had the power, you could change that shit for the better. Like, there are things you can do. And like you said, that's not cheating. Like, we have rules that allow for that. And do that.
And look, this isn't like new level of partisanship or whatever. This is exactly how the game's always been played. The reason Delaware has the same amount of senators as Virginia is because they fought for it and demanded the same. Even though I think at the founding had 13, Virginia had 13 times as many people, and the slave states were like, we need a House with equal representation, 2 votes per state, even though you guys have more people than us. That was always that was a power play at the time. And then later on, the reason there are two Dakotas instead of 1 is because they wanted 4 slave opposing senators instead of 2, or 4 Republicans instead of 2. It's not. This stuff isn't out of bounds. It's not apocalyptic. It's trying to make progress and advance the country. And also, the citizens of DC and Puerto Rico pay taxes and deserve a say in shit. They have rights. It's not, the way this stuff is talked about is ridiculous, and I don't understand why Republicans frame it in the news media. The Democrats trying is cheating, and then we all just sort of buy it. But like, it kind of won't, going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, it kind of won't matter if Biden's elected and there's a Democratic supermajority of the conservative court, because this people think conservatives want the courts for culture war stuff, which they kind of do. They don't, they would like to be able to stop social progress, but really it's raw power stuff like voting rights. And two, business. Most of what the court does is interstate commerce, business regulation, right? That's the stuff you'd have to read about in page 27B of the newspaper. But for example, do you know what the Chevron doctrine is? All right.
No, tell me.
It's this judicial theory that when a law is written vaguely, the courts will defer to an agency's interpretation of the law. Now, this is I'm not a lawyer. This is a dummy's understanding of it from just reading about it. So if you're a lawyer, forgive me for being stupid. If Drew's watching, he's probably already mad at me. So basically, it's like Congress doesn't understand science, right? They're 535 morons if you count the Senate. So would they be like, Congress will agree there should be less lead on toys, right? Broadly speaking, there should be less lead on toys. They create the Consumer Product Safety Commission and empower them to regulate how much lead's on toys, so brains don't end up fucked up. It's hard enough for Congress to agree on principles like that. What they cannot agree on ever is the exact amount of lead that should be allowed on toys. Imagine if Congress had to negotiate that, right? So they delegate to the agency to talk to scientists and figure out the exact amount. Now, Neil Gorsuch's purpose in life has been to end that, right? Which basically would eliminate the entire regulatory state. If they get 6 justices who believe like Neil Gorsuch does, the FDA, the EPA, the Super Product Safety Commission, the SEC, everything that regulates everything is gone. The federal government cannot function. This means when you go to the store, the expiration date on your meat that you always assume is fairly accurate is absolutely going to be a lie. So this is real life stuff that affects your everyday grocery shopping. This is not just whether your gay cousin can get married, which is also very important, but this is like whether or not your kids can breathe. So
the big government shit aside, I've never understood the opposition to just any kind of regulations that comes from the right, because like these corporations, like you were talking about the grocery store, like food corporations and stuff, they literally used to, like, if a worker in a meat packing plant fell into the grinder on accident on the job, they just grind his ass up and put him in the can with the rest of the mystery meat and send it out. Like they don't give a fuck. Like the only way to rein these corporations in is with governmental regulations. You have to. They're never going to police themselves. They will keep poisoning your water, killing your cows, killing your fucking kids, making your tap water flammable. They'll keep doing all of that as long as it's more profitable for them, unless the government forces them not to. Like,
yeah.
It's always been so wild to me that's even a partisan thing, but I mean it absolutely is. But that's fucking crazy, man. Like, I mean, why does conservative middle America or whatever, why do they give a fuck about what DuPont is or is not allowed to do, unless you live in a DuPont town, where they founded this town and they pay everybody's wages, but that's one town. If you're anybody else, why do you care what they are not allowed to do? It blows my fucking mind.
Do you know what Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle about, people falling into meat processing vats and then getting ground up into hot dogs? He was a socialist. He was writing about worker abuses. People read about human beings being in their hot dogs, and we're not mad about the human beings dying. They were mad about the hot dogs. So that's what we got the FDA.
Ew, that's gross. I don't want people... No. Pig assholes only in my hot dogs. I don't want Gary meat in there. That's disgusting.
He was trying to start a socialist revolution, instead it started a wellness cult. So.
Well, either way, they shouldn't be able to put Gary in the sausage, So let's talk.
But Biden bumper sticker: no Gary in the sausage.
No Gary in the sausage. So let's talk briefly about the, according to everything I've seen, likely nominee from Trump. I mean, there's a few different candidates, but everything I'm seeing is saying the front runner is a woman named Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah.
she's a former clerk to Scalia. She's been a professor at law at Notre Dame and a judge in the Seventh Circuit Court in Chicago, I believe, for years. And she's been brought up a few times before. And she is, to put it lightly, a bit of a zealot, a religious zealot. She's super Catholic. Her and her husband have 7 kids. They belong to a particular sect of Catholicism, based on the reports I've seen, that is pretty conservative, meaning they believe that the woman's place is being subservient to the husband. She gave a commencement address at Notre Dame, her alma mater, in 2012, and at that address she said that, quote, "A legal degree is but a means to an end, and that end is the coming of the kingdom of God." So this is all looking good.
I mean, I don't look if Joe Biden nominates a Muslim for the court, we're going to get a lot of religious paranoia. I feel like it's a trap to talk about. They really want to bait everybody into a fight about her religion, right? That's what they want to have the fight about. But on a hunch, I just Googled Amy Barrett Chevron, and the first hit is Trump frontrunner could bend court on Chevron deference, and that's from an environmental news website. So I'm just saying, like, eye on the ball here.
Right.
Like they're not really trying to do. I mean, Mike Pence would love to live in a Handmaid's Tale, but like that's not really the top 5 things they want to make happen. They want.
So you think the whole abortion aspect of it is the Roe v. Wade aspect of it is a straw man? Like you think that's like?
I mean, it's a dog chasing the car kind of thing. You can never tell what they mean and what they don't, because if they understand, if they actually invalidate Roe, they're looking at landslide election losses for a while. They probably rather have the issue than win, but because the people who are committed to it are very dedicated voters, and the people that don't care about it very much just don't believe Republicans would ever actually do it. But electoral losses won't really matter if we're ruled by the way our system's set up, where the Supreme Court has total say over everything. We've let our politics go to this point where essentially our laws are ruled by a council of 9 elders who you can't get rid of. Like it just like. Do Republicans care if they don't control either house of either house of Congress or the presidency? If Democrats can't pass any laws without being invalidated? So I don't know.
Right. Well, that's another thing that just now got brought up and we haven't talked about. I mean, off top, the whole notion of lifetime appointments is extremely
stupid,
antiquated, and irrational at this point, right? Like we were texting about the other day, like it's crazy. You think about like the founding fathers when they put that in there, a lifetime appointment, a lifetime then was like 54 years old or whatever. But also their whole rationale was that a lifetime appointment would insulate the Supreme Court justices from the swaying of partisan politics in America. It's like, oh, so you're worried about the Supreme Court getting politicized? Yeah, we definitely need to watch out for that. You know what I mean? Like, nothing about it makes sense anymore at this point, and it's ridiculous that they get they're in there forever.
People also used to leave the court voluntarily. They didn't stay there for life. It was a different world. Like, I mean, I was reading today about LBJ bought some guy off. Like a Supreme Court justice, he appointed him as a cabinet secretary, so he resigns, he could replace him, and then fucked up because he couldn't get the guy he wanted on the court approved because he was corrupt, and then ended up holding the seat open for Nixon. So, but the thing is, they conservatives want to win, and they understand like this is about wielding levers of power. Like look at the difference. Like was it Souter that retired so they could appoint Kavanaugh, who's way younger, and Ginsburg, God rest her soul, fucked up and didn't retire when Obama was president. Now, when you offer that criticism and people say, well, she earned the right to do whatever she wanted. She did. She had the choice. She earned the right to make that choice. She made the wrong choice, right? And we sure learned that lesson because Thurgood Marshall held on too long during Carter's administration. And he tried to stay alive until there was another Democratic president, but it wasn't until 13 years later. And so he died in 91, and Thurgood Marshall was replaced with Clarence Thomas. So we just never learn. Like this isn't about like feting your heroes. This is about real world stuff that affects people's actual lived lives. The politicians and justices aren't like comic book heroes. You can argue about the interpretation of their characters and their story arcs. I mean, I'm sure Ruth Bader Ginsburg was dreaming about the second woman on the Supreme Court being, having a replacement named by the first one president. That probably would have been a really cool button to her story. But life's not a movie,
Right.
So.
It's one of those things where like it's hard to see it ever changing because whoever is in power at any given time is like benefited by it. You know what I mean? Like whoever has the power at any given moment is probably not going to be inclined to change it because they're like, well, yeah, but we could use that to our benefit though. Whenever we hold all the cards, and I don't know. It's upsetting. But Mark, I want to. Moving on a little bit, I want you to talk to us about money laundering. What's going on with that?
So, anybody who's talked about politics at the bar with me ever knows that I'm obsessed with money laundering. This is not just because I live in North Hollywood where there are a bunch of you can't spend any time in New York with all the cash bars and wonder how cash bars make any sense in 2020 and then look around at what businesses work and how they work and why and all these really rich areas in New York that have no businesses in them because no one actually lives in the apartments there. They're just empty. They're bought and sitting there and as investments. And you read about all this app financing. There's like the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund and all these like South American venture capital funds who are flush with cash and no one knows from where. Drug cartels are buying into apps that don't make any sense and can never turn a profit and all this stuff. Like on a small scale, there's 3 lamp stores side by side a mile from my house. I've never seen anyone go in them. They do the same lamps there. There's a bar across my old apartment that nobody ever went in except for me, and they were always remodeling. And I guarantee you, if you track the LLCs back, the company doing the remodeling was the same company that owned the place, and they were paying themselves to move money around. It's all nonsense. Anyway, so BuzzFeed has this would be an earth-shattering story along with like the Panama Papers and from a couple years ago. That reporter got murdered, by the way. BuzzFeed did it more. They spread the reporting out among like 15 reporters, three or four different news organizations. But if you Google FinCEN, which is reporting, so what this guy did, he tried to get a hold of all of the suspicious activity reports related to the Trump campaign in Russia, right? So he's trying to get a hold, like when you read about Paul Manafort, his money laundering operations being reported by banks, and that's what Mueller indicted for. He tried to get a hold of everything else, and so there's a bunch of like mentions of Trump and a bunch of Kushner. Rich people get a ton of those anyway. So, but he couldn't figure out what the actual story with them was. He took a step back and looked at it, and it is bigger than that because basically everything is money laundering. Everything is. He found mentions of Walgreens, of Nobu, Richard De Niro's sushi restaurant. Like the list goes on and on and on. And basically what banks have figured out is that they can snitch on themselves. They can do the voluntary reporting where you file a suspicious activity report for all the money laundering you're doing because the government's not going to do shit about it. So you can abide by the letter of the law and break the spirit consistently because the feds do not care about busting money laundering because it controls our economy. America's rich as shit by this reverse colonialism thing where we made ourselves the safe place for the international elite to park their ill-gotten gains. So if you're El Chapo and you've made your billions by making Mexico a miserable, corrupt place to live, you can't trust keeping your money in Mexico. You got to get it out. You got to buy real estate in New York and part of Uber and invest in movies in LA and shit, right? And we're more than happy to take that money. And the guy, anyway, you should listen to the podcast and read the articles because it's fascinating and it's a way bigger story than whatever's in the newspaper today about political horse race shit that doesn't matter. This is the world we live in, and this is what controls it. So yeah. Right.
Well, that's the thing to me is, and I understand why. I mean, I get it. I'm worried about all the same things too, but because of how many awful things are going on in 2020 politically in this country, and how many things there are to be terrified about. The notion of America being a straight up plutocracy and income inequality and rich people just running it and the banks running it and all that has kind of fallen by the wayside. And that's a real shame, because before all this insanity popped off, that to me, that was like the number one issue that we were facing. You know, we talked on a previous episode about, like, you know, I love Obama, but I had criticisms of him because I didn't think he was liberal enough. And one of those things was that, you know, he was in the bank's pocket. He went easy on the banks, and everybody always has. And I definitely feel like, because no one's talking about that anymore, because we're so far removed from the financial crisis in 2008 and that type of thing, and because there are so many other problems that everybody's facing in their day-to-day lives, no one's really worried about the banks and the financial elite and what they are up to, that they're going to just slide under the radar and keep up to their same old bullshit. And that's a huge fucking problem.
There was a CIA analyst in the 90s testifying in Congress. I'm going to butcher this quote or his testimony because it's been a while since I read the article about it. But when Soviet Union collapsed and all this Soviet property fled out and Western investment went in, and this guy was talking, like the Congress is talking victorious about how like wonderful this was and all that stuff, and this guy kept trying to make the point to them to make them understand that like this is how their corruption escapes. Because we think about it, we think a lot of dumb shit in this country. We think of this in terms of like communism versus capitalism, and capitalism one is kind of stupid because it's cronyism versus at least attempting to be some sort of kind of meritocracy where good ideas and good products win. And he was trying to explain this to a really deaf, stupid Congress, and it was really frustrating to watch the clip. But yeah, we're rapidly becoming a third world style government because we've been open to bribes, and we've defined bribes as political contributions, and all the stuff that we're seeing in our politics is just because of Citizens United and money laundering. That's it. Rich people have figured out how to buy elections and how to buy the government, and so things generally suck. So,
right, and you know, and I know you know what I'm saying, but I feel like you said, Citizens United. You remember how big of a talking point Citizens United was for a little while? You know, like this whole thing we're talking about for a while there was at the forefront of the American political debate, you know, Bernie and all of them, like it would be because it's a huge problem.
Trey,
but now we're going into this election, and it's like I can't remember the last time I heard somebody bring up Citizens United. It's not like it stopped being a problem. I know we got a whole lot of other problems, but it's still a problem.
It was a scandal when Obama at the State of the Union talked about Citizens United, because you weren't supposed to talk politics in front of the Supreme Court because the court's not political. Fucking horseshit. So he talks about Citizens United, and he said that he was going to allow a huge influx of foreign money into our elections. And I think it was David Souter or maybe it was Alito was caught on camera shaking his head no, like that was wrong. And it was a big to-do for a while, especially in conservative media. But now we're having debates. The President of the United States goes on Twitter and we're arguing about whether Russia or Saudi Arabia or China is influencing our elections more and who they want to win. This is where we're at now. Is like they can just dump, like Saudi Arabia can just start a super PAC and run all the ads they want, which maybe that's free speech, maybe not. But we need in my opinion, we need public financing for elections. We need to dial the money back. Where we can actually talk about ideas and policies and things that affect people's lives, as opposed to all this horseshit we're drowning in. Because it's easier if you're a sea-level power like Russia. I'm not even talking about the scandal. I'm using this as a hypothetical. It's much easier to buy an American election through simple campaign donations and funneling $60 million to the NRA or whatever it is they're accused of doing, than it is to defeat us on a battlefield because we have a $2 trillion military. It's just a much cheaper effort. And so when you and it's not just like the Russiagate thing is wrapped into Russia, but all that stuff was being handled through Qatar and Saudi Arabia. It's
you know what is also wrapped up with what you're talking about there. You just made me think of when it comes to social media and everything, and the have with propaganda and spreading it, and people living in their own bubbles and that type of thing, like I feel like sometimes people look at that as like just a reality of the new world we live in or whatever. But that goes back to regulations. You know what I mean? Like they are the same as the meat packing plants were in the early 20th century that Upton Sinclair was talking about. Like there are things we can do to Facebook and Twitter and them to keep that type of shit from happening. Like we just have to do it. You have to regulate them and force them to be better shepherds of that shit, or they're never going to do it on their own. It's not like a lost cause or just a reality of the world we live in, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we just got to there's got to be less. I mean, it's getting the weeds of this stuff so deep, but like, I don't think it's about social media stuff. I mean, like, a fairly evil world power can just basically, with one pass through, can give money directly to a candidate. So if Exxon can buy half the Senate, you know who has more money than Exxon? Saudi Arabia, Qatar,
right?
You know, like,
right?
Well,
yeah.
Like, by just allowing this stuff, it's like we're this lobbying. Like, it never occurred to me. I was always against America being the world's police, but like one really, really bad aspect of being the world's police that I hadn't even occurred to me is what's the first thing the mob does is try to buy the police, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what people are talking about in the comments over here. Let's see. Yeah.
I saw a commenter. So somebody with a Trump count just commented, "Dickheads talking out their ass," and they're not wrong.
They're not wrong. You're 100% right, actually. We are two dickheads talking out of our ass. David S. Skipper says, address to the idiots on your messages the futility of voting third party. All right. This has gotten brought up on recent episodes, but this is something that honestly drives me crazy. Don't get me wrong. In principle, I understand and appreciate the desire for multiple parties. Like that would be great. Like I wish that was an actual option in this country at this point, but like it just straight up isn't right now. And in other previous elections, there were opportunities to make that stand, I think, to try to get any given third party to a 5% level where they could participate in the next election at a higher level in the debates and stuff like that. And I get all of that. But like this year particularly, that's just not what's happening. Like there are whether you like it or not, there are two options. And you got to pick one of them or sit at home. And in my opinion, sitting at home is still picking one of them. And that's what worries me.
I have a bunch of thoughts about this. One is like I voted for Nader in 2000, but I did so in Texas, and it was a strategic vote trying to get it was not an important vote. Let's put it that way. Bush was going to win Texas. The goal was to get Nader to 15%, so he could get equal funding for the next election.
Right.
We get equal funding the next election. I understand voting strategically. If you're in a safe state, if you're in New York, if you're in Vermont, if you're in California, do what you want, right? The structure of our system allows you to do that. Practically speaking, I think what you should do is, if you live in a state with a ballot initiative system, is try to get ranked choice voting, because then you could vote green first, Democrat second, and if the Green Party wasn't winning, it would run down. The way you guarantee your vote isn't wasted, right? But also, politicians are supposed to win your votes in our system. If you don't feel motivated to vote for somebody, I'm not going to yell at you for it. I think you're setting back your own agenda, and I will tell you that. But I can't tell you how to vote. That's it's your solemn right as an American to figure out who you're going to vote for. I would just say that, like, if you're doing it in a state that's going to be close, I think you're screaming into a void. I don't think you're doing much. Except that's my personal opinion. But you guys do what you want.
Yep. Tiffany Austin says, voting third party is a luxury we don't have right now, and that's pretty much how I feel about it too. And Andrea Keeling says, Do not vote third party. A vote for a third party is a vote for Trump in this election. Please vote blue for all of our sakes. And I think that's true, but I also think that the same logic works in the other direction, meaning like I think there are Republicans who are not comfortable with voting for Trump, but also will never vote for Biden. And I'll just tell you right now, I'm straight up for them not voting. They can sit at home. They can vote third party all they want. But it serves the same point. Like, doing that is still a choice you make. Like, that is still a vote you cast, you know. Yeah. And I hope that the people who are in that boat on the other side, I hope they do it. But, you know, I mean, there's no escaping the fact that, like, the reality of the situation, you're still making a choice either way. Whether you sit at home, whether you vote third party, whatever you do, you're making a choice. And the stakes are too high right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, so, we spent the first 25 minutes of the podcast ranting about the ineptitude and fecklessness of Democrats. So it's not like we're not captive to the party in any way, shape, or form. I would just say, next Senate election, I will vote. I will be voting for Joe Biden, and then voting for whoever Dianne Feinstein's primary challenger is, because she got to go.
Yeah. So we got a comment here from a YouTube commenter whose username is "We the People for Trump," and it says, "Why is Trump so bad? He only been there 4 years." And it's funny because I feel like you're making a point you maybe don't intend to make with that.
How's your year going, bud? How's your
right? Yeah, because the thing is, Mr. We the People for Trump, I actually 100% agree with you. He has only been there for 4 years, and I also wonder how has he been this bad? Yeah. Like that's a valid question. Like, it's crazy how bad he's been in only 4 years, and the idea of 4 more of it, can't stomach it.
It's both better and worse than I thought. Like for one, my worst case scenarios I imagined haven't happened. War with Iran, war with Korea, those things I thought were live possibilities. Turns out he doesn't have the attention span for that shit. His total lack of attention span is a problem that isn't allowed COVID to take off and his various cronies to run their departments the way they want and strip mine the whole country for parts. I didn't think he'd be able to, I didn't imagine I'd be sitting in my apartment for a whole fucking year. That was not part of it. 200,000 dead was probably about what I would have guessed, but I would have thought it would happen in a war. Yeah, it's bad, man.
It is bad. It is bad. Tim Miller says 1 in the head or 5 in the chest. 2 options. Are they
threatening to shoot us? Is that what?
Right, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
He's talking about the voting choices. Oh, okay.
Yes, the voting choices. Nathaniel Seaman says ranked choice would fix that problem, which is what Mark was talking about earlier. And there's a lot of other people talking about ranked choices. And again, for the record, theoretically speaking, I'm all for ranked choices. I think that's a great idea that we should absolutely explore. But we don't have that right now. We are living in the reality we live in, and that isn't a thing. In the future, I would love for that to become a valid option, but it isn't right now.
All right. So the We the People for Trump guy, who I'm assuming is a troll, but he sincerely asked he seems to sincerely ask what is so bad I don't understand. Okay.
Oh, he's still out there, Mark, before you talk. He's got a follow-up. He says Trump has never been the problem. All right. So anyway, go ahead, Mark. What do you guys say?
So we were reading about the Supreme Court, the hauling out of the regulatory state, right? You're going to have more poison in your food and your water because of Trump. The hauling out of the CIA and the State Department, which the CIA fucking sucks and the State Department mostly sucks, but having professional people know what they're talking about there, not the CIA so much, and this is a bad example to use, but the State Department keeps us out of fucking wars, right? That's bad. We're going to have more wars in the next decades because of Trump. Those are just 2 big reasons. Cancer and war. I'll just throw that out there.
I don't know how you could argue would be in a worse right now than we are with Trump in charge. You know what I mean? Because there are so many examples you can point to around the world of countries who, like, I know the numbers are not the same population wise or whatever else, but there's still parallels to be drawn. We're not the only. This was a global pandemic. We're not the only country to have been faced with this problem, and yet we have more deaths than anybody by a lot. We're number one, and like we're supposed to be the leader of the free world, and this is the best we could come up with. And you really think that if it wasn't the Trump administration, Trump who came out early in the pandemic and was saying it's not a problem, don't worry about it, it's a China thing, it's gonna disappear soon, we've got it locked down, and this still happened anyway? You really think if it wasn't them, we would have done better? That makes no sense.
This is our opportunity to talk about that Kennedy kid. So this kid went to the New Yorker. He broke an NDA to talk about. He was on Kushner's task force for the fucking pandemic, right?
Yeah, Kennedy. Yeah, he's a Kennedy kid.
He volunteered. Like Kushner put out a call for all these Harvard kids to come to Washington to work on the pandemic task force. So this kid, he couldn't go to law school. He's planning to go to law school, but he couldn't go because of COVID. So he decided to volunteer and service the nation, probably a good resume builder, whatever. He goes down there, assume they're going to be helping some big government task force with some volunteer intern type stuff. He realizes they are the whole task force. They had a bunch of 23-year-old kids with no training in logistics or anything else, medicine, trying to control a pandemic. And he realizes because they were trying to give him cover for where their talking points were. And like you look around the world, this isn't like at the beginning it was like, oh well, you know, the racists who don't read a lot about Asia would be like, well, this is because those are, you know, totalitarian societies and Asians are very, you know, they conform easily or whatever, rules or want to wear masks. South Koreans took to the streets 2 years ago and overthrew their fucking government. They got a good government response because they demanded it, right? This is an authoritarian versus liberal democracy thing. There have been liberal democracies that handle this problem great. New Zealand, for example. Germany did pretty good. France and Spain they've had a backslide. Britain handled it terribly. The only correlation for who did this poorly is the countries ran by right-wing anti-science buffoons. Not just right-wing. You have to have the anti-science buffoons part. Your Boris Johnsons, your Gerald Bolsonaro's, and your Vladimir Putin's. Those are the countries that have absolutely done the fucking worst.
Yeah. So I had one up there for a minute where our buddy were talking about the YouTube commenter. He said, it's not that bad. 200,000 people dead. It's not that bad. But we got another one here that I'd like to actually address. Vincere Atamore, I'm doing my best here, says, I want to vote Dem, but I'm having trouble articulating a cogent argument on why that is a good choice. Please provide me some backup for why I should do that. I guess people get tired of hearing the same argument over and over again, but to me, like I said earlier, all this ranked voting shit, third party shit aside, there are two choices. There's only two. And you say you can't justify voting Dem, but that's the same in this election as voting for Trump. And if you can't see all the reasons why it's a bad idea to vote for Trump right now at this point in time in the year 2020 with where we're at with COVID and everything surrounding it, then I don't know what argument I can make to you to convince you otherwise.
I will say that as Trey and I's reason for doing this show and why we know each other and get along so great, we're both rural. We both live in LA, but we're rural Southern people by background, and we talk about this politics stuff. And I think it's like I'll see like tone deaf libs tweet stuff about how the jokes about how we should just let the South secede or break the country up or whatever into like the coastal states and then Jesus land in the middle or whatever. Here's the thing: there's gay and black people in the middle. The South is the blackest region in the country. We did an episode of our Facebook show about it. The South is also the gayest region in the country. The reason you shouldn't make yourself more comfortable by taking the easy way out is because you're abandoning those people. you're abandoning people. If you can vote however you want, without, I don't want to yell at you. I don't know if I can pronunciation your name. I'm sure you're very nice. I don't want to yell without knowing where you live. I don't want to yell at you, but I'm saying like you have a less chance of dying. A bunch of people have less chance of dying under Democratic administration. That doesn't make them good. It doesn't make them perfect. We can yell at them, but you have a less chance of dying of COVID, less chance of dying because of cancer from your drinking water, and less chance of not having health insurance because they're not going to want to pass Medicare for all. But by God, I'm going to fucking yell at them too, constantly.
Right. That's the yes. As a I understand coming from the town I come from. I understand rural people, and we don't know if this guy's a rural American or not, but I understand rural people not trusting Democrats after everything that went down with NAFTA and all that shit. Like, I get that, but the thing is, you've had 4 years at this point of Trump who made all these promises to you, and if you can look me in the eye and tell me that shit is better in rural America than it was in 2016, then you're full of shit. Or you're lying to yourself, you're lying to me, or both, because it's fucking not. Like, and if that still is enough for you to vote Democrat, honestly, that's fine with me. Just don't vote at all. But you can't act like he has improved your life. You're fucking, like you said, you ain't got health insurance. Your job ain't come back from Mexico. Your fucking hospital is probably closed. Shit is not better.
Textile,
and you know it.
Textile mill in my hometown is still closed. No more employer is still Walmart. $7 an hour. So I don't know what you guys wanted or expecting, but it hasn't fucking happened.
Yep. All right. Well, with that said, ain't shit better. Follow your heart.
Wait, can we do this motherfucker here so we leave on a fun note, just real quick?
You think this is going to be a fun note? But yeah, sure.
No,
yes,
maybe
we
not.
can.
Maybe
Well,
not.
no,
You're right.
no. I mean, hell, since you brought it up, we'll do it. Yeah, me and Mark are floating a recurring segment called This Motherfucker Here. And the nominee we had for tonight was one of the cops involved in the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville, Kentucky. And this motherfucker here has sent out a mass email to the entire department
at 2 a.m.
At 2 a.m.
Obviously drunk on his fucking ass.
Just a drunken manifesto laying out all the reasons it was bullshit that they are being villainized for what happened in the Breonna Taylor case. And one of the things he said was, among many other horrible things, quote, "Regardless of the outcome today or Wednesday, I know we did the legal, moral, and ethical thing that night. It's sad how the good guys are demonized and criminals are canonized." Breonna Taylor was not a criminal, is not a criminal. Like, there was no criminal element. You broke into a person's house, and as the NRA would back up any white American's right to do so, you got ballistic resistance to that effort, and that ended in murder. Like, what the fuck is the rationale for calling that the legal, moral, and ethical thing to do?
The Breonna Taylor case is like such a more clear-cut example of both incompetence and institutional racism than the George Floyd. I mean, the George Floyd case is awful. I'm not trying to excuse that by any means, but you could, in theory, do a bad apple. One guy, 4 cops, or whatever. This, they got a no-knock warrant, which is supposed to be very hard to get. It's unconstitutional to use no-knock warrants for low-level stuff. They're using it for a weed dealer arrest. They went to the wrong address. That's fuck up number one. After that, the first part racism number one. Second part fuck up number one. They're looking for a guy who they already had in custody. They didn't do a search to see if the guy was already in jail. They were trying to arrest a guy who they already had in jail. It's fuck up number 2. They kick in the door. They don't announce themselves. They shoot her. That's incompetence and racism. The guy defends himself. He shoots one of the cops. They arrest him for shooting them. And when he shot them in self-defense, they're armed intruders in his house they weren't supposed to be in. They don't arrest the cops. They don't fire the cops. They pick one to fire. I don't know if they drew a name out of a hat or whatever. That this cop's still on the job, getting drunk, and he's on paid leave. He's the one that got shot in the leg. This guy, the whole thing is fucking infuriating, and he thinks he's the victim here. at a minimum, at a
Right.
bare minimum, you went to the wrong address, the wrong order, arrest the guy who was already in custody. Yeah.
Right. There's no argument. What is the stance the NRA takes on the purpose of the Second Amendment, if not for to defend yourself whenever agents of a tyrannical government enter your home illegally and assault you with violence? If you can't defend yourself in that point or in that moment, what even is supposed to be the purpose of the Second Amendment? You know,
what's the Fourth Amendment, or the one about putting troops in your house? If you had to sum
Right.
up the whole Bill of Rights in one log line, it would be cops can't come in your motherfucking house. That would be it.
but yeah, this guy has been disrespected and inappropriately villainized according in his words, demonized, while criminals are canonized. Again, no criminals in that situation. So, yeah,
She was
definitely
also a public servant. She was a paramedic.
Yeah, an EMT, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
literally worked saving lives. The opposite of a criminal, shot for no fucking reason. And this guy is incensed that people think there should be some kind of consequences for that happening.
And this is all happening.
That motherfucker.
This go get 'em guys email, by the way, was setting the guys of Louisville being put on lockdown and a heightened sense of security because they're about to announce they aren't going to charge the cops. So this is
right.
This is basically, you guys get out there and save my ass because they're coming for me because I fucked.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll have that to talk about on Thursday. We'll see. Shit's about to get even uglier.
Yeah.
2020, everybody. That's how it goes. So we'll see y'all in 48 hours on Thursday for the next edition of Evening Skews. But that's it for tonight. Thank y'all for joining us. Love you. See you. Bye.
Have a good